Solomon Wilcots is our special guest in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. So you're going to learn a lot about the game of football. Solomon Wilcots is a football savant. There's no question about it. Solly was part of the SWAT team, 1988 Super Bowl 23 team, AFC championship team. Cincinnati Bengals had part of that great secondary, played 6 years in the NFL. And Solly then has gone on to an outstanding broadcast career. Many media forms, radio, television, podcaster. So Solomon Wilcots understands the game of football, and he always imparts knowledge. We'll do a review and analyze the Houston Texans' loss the Cincinnati Bengals suffered, and then talk about how they might rebound on Thursday night against the Baltimore Ravens. You're going to enjoy what Solly has to say, I think. Appreciate you joining us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. As always, coming to you from our studios at First Star Logistics, which are second to none. And we have a second to none guest today. This guy is all about football. I was listening to him, Sirius XM radio, on my drive in this morning, and he was doing it, chopping it up as he always does in a very, very intelligent fashion. Solomon Wilcots, great player, been a broadcaster for many, many years in television, radio, just about every form of media that there is. 2 brilliant careers. Welcome, my man.
Dave, thanks for having me. Always good to be on with you. And yeah, we keep it going. I just finished up a 3-hour show with Torrey Holt, my good friend. And we try to bring a lot of energy on the morning show. It's the opening drive on Sirius XM NFL Radio Channel 88. And so we hope that as many listeners can join us as possible each morning.
And you guys do a phenomenal job. There's no question about it, Solly. It's good stuff. I really enjoy it. I listen a good part of it every single morning. You do a phenomenal job.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it.
All right. So, hey, very, very unfortunate outcome for the Cincinnati Bengals against the Houston Texans. But, boy, I'll tell you what, C.J. Stroud, you talk about legit. He impressed me. Boy, seeing it in person, it's like, wow, this guy, he's a player, man.
Look, he sure is. And the sad part is that, it's almost like we're all shocked, even though he's in our backyard, went to school right there in Columbus at the Ohio State University. And I loved watching him every Saturday.
Yep.
And I was miffed when it's what Bill Polian calls the draft industrial complex. He called basically there's a business now of people who have created an industry of predicting who can play and who can't play. And you don't hear them now, right? They're not speaking now, but soon as the season's over, and the ball's not being thrown, no games are being played, everyone becomes an expert on who they think can play in the NFL. And for whatever reason, they have a way of downgrading people. And that happened with C.J. Stroud. And I could tell you when he walked across that stage, he hugged Commissioner Roger Goodell. He was emotional. He had tears in his eyes because you know why? The whole process throughout that period, it was tough on him. They were tearing him down. People were talking about his academic tests. He doesn't grade well. Nobody talked about what he did on the field. Nobody talked about all the games he won at Ohio State. Nobody talked about the fact that he made Chris Olave and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Garrett Wilson and all these guys. They look great. No one ever said he was the one throwing them the ball all those Saturdays. For whatever reason, they were downgrading him, and I'm like, this guy could flat out play. I mean, I just loved him. And for whatever reason, he dropped to that second overall selection. The Houston Texans took him, and I could tell you right now, they have not regretted it for one moment. All he's done over the last 2 weeks, he's thrown for over 800 yards.
Yeah.
And he set a single game passing record a week ago against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 470 and 5 touchdowns and no interception.
Unreal.
No rookie quarterback ever did that in the 104-year history of our league.
Unbelievable. It really is. I mean, it's a phenomenal accomplishment. And I agree with this S2 test, whatever it is that they take. They should take that S2 test and crumble it up and pitch it, because it means nothing on a football field. And you know, kudos to the Houston Texans. They trusted their eyes evaluating tape. Put on the Georgia game. Georgia's got a bunch of NFL caliber players. He rips them up for like 346 yards.
Yeah, he was shredding that night. I remember. Yeah.
When I watched that game, I'm like, oh, this guy's he's the real deal. He was just crushing in the college football playoffs. So yeah, it is crazy. But man, Stroud, he's making his throwing motion so compact and so accurate. I mean, he is he really when he threw the interception to Cam Taylor-Britt, it was interesting. They were saying D'Amico Ryans in pressers after the game said that Stroud came right up to him and said, Coach, I got your back. We're going to win this football game. I mean, that's maturity. Instead of like a lot of rookies go to the bench and put their head down and sulk a little bit or whatever. Yeah. This kid goes right to his head coach, says, you know, I'm over it. We're gonna make plays. We're gonna win this football game. He's a special player. There's no
question. Mature. He's really mature. And I think that emotional period through that draft process, it can tear players down for all the wrong reasons, because it's got nothing to do with their work product.
Right.
It's got nothing to do with their body of work on the field. And it's got everything to do with these things that you can try to pass as somebody's character, or try to pass as a tangible thing for telling the market, this is who this player is. And as players, you and I both know we frown on that, because at the end of the day, it should be about how we've lived our lives, how we performed on the field, how we participated in the culture of a university setting. I mean, we don't live in a glass bubble. You have to go to class. You're in the public, right? You know a lot of people on campus who are not going to be NFL players, who are just everyday people who you have to talk to and relate with, and you have to treat them with decency, or you're going to emerge with a bad reputation. Yep. But none of that stuff was said about C.J. Stroud. You know why? Because it wasn't true. So you had to manufacture something to try to downgrade him. At the end of the day, that's the stuff that really reveals character. When people try to assassinate or try to misportray and misrepresent who you really are, that's where character really is tested. Now, I really do believe in young people. If you handle it the right way, that's where character is forged.
Yep.
I do a radio show with Ryan Leaf, and he's not shy about telling people how he did not handle the criticism very well, how he did melt down and it did cost him his career, and how he could have dealt with those criticisms a lot better.
Right.
He said he wasn't mature enough to deal with it at the time, but he has since faced it. He now goes out and speaks with college kids all around the country about what they're embarking upon when they're coming into the NFL and what they're going to have to deal with. And now C.J. Stroud knows it firsthand. He has seen it. He dealt with it. And I do believe, just like you gave that depiction of how he handled the adverse moment after the interception by Cam Taylor-Britt, going to talk to his coach, I think that's proof that he's grown through the process, that it didn't break him. I think it made him stronger.
Yep.
And out on the other end, he's become a better person, a better quarterback as a result. But I don't think we need to be putting our young men through this false prism and making them prove to be something based on false information that's going out there about them. It's something that we don't need to be putting our young men through, because some of them may not survive it. And God forbid what should happen to them if they should take a mental hit. Their mental health is vitally important. And so we shouldn't have to do this to our young man for them to prove to us that they can play in this league.
Right. And the cottage industry of ripping people down. I mean, what the heck, man?
That's right.
I mean, let's be human beings with each other here a little bit. Yep. So I mean, Stroud throws for over 350 yards. Singletary rushes for 150, and Brown has a receiving yard total of 172. First time in Bengals history they gave up a 150-yard rusher and 170-plus yard receiver in the same game. I mean, it's been around a while, and the first time that happened is very uncharacteristic of the way this defense has been playing under Lou Anarumo. Was just one of those bad days at the office, man.
I described the entire game as uncharacteristic. That's what I used to describe it, because when do you see Joe Burrow throw 2 interceptions, let alone on back-to-back possessions?
Right.
When do you see him force the ball into a coverage? You never see that.
Yeah.
When do you see a Tyler Boyd drop a touchdown pass that's meaningful? This is a guy that he's one of the bedrock players of this franchise.
Yep.
And so for me, it was just, and as Joe said, he had a 64-yard catch and run to get us down there, because that's who Tyler Boyd is. So the drop for me was so uncharacteristic. Allowing Devin Singletary to rip through us, and the Texans to come up with 180-plus yards rushing in the game, that's so uncharacteristic. We had blitzing defensive backs getting penetration in the backfield unblocked, and he made them miss. Like, the design of the play that Lou Anarumo had drawn up was perfect. And yet we still couldn't get the guy tackled. couldn't get him on the ground. Our tackling was poor.
Yep.
The way that we fit in the run game, it was poor. And then the way that they would go max protection, right? They were running 2-man routes. He had all day to throw it because they max protected. And it was their ability to run the ball that really lent itself to play action setting up for C.J. Stroud to have so much time for those long crossing routes and long developing routes to develop. And it was like everything they did that we're normally good at, everything they did, it worked. I was sitting there watching the game like, are you telling me he held the ball for over 3 seconds on that play and didn't get hit? We sacked him 1 time in the game, and that's unlike our defense. When Cam Taylor-Britt stole the ball and got his 4th interception in the last 5 games, and what a guy playing at a very high level. Right. He gave us a chance to get back in the game. I mean, and I'm thinking, okay, we've stubbed our toe, because after scoring on the first drive, they scored 20 unanswered points.
Yep.
Have to punt 5 or 6 times between that drive and the next time we scored. That's uncharacteristic for an offense led by Joe Burrow with so much talent. So, I look, that's why you got to win those games early, because if you squander 1 or 2 of them, man, you can't afford to drop these in the middle, because it can really be costly. And now the margins are so very narrow, right, to get into the playoffs. They're still there.
Right.
But it's a very narrow pathway.
Really is. I mean, for all the things that we're talking about that went wrong offensively, first drive, score a touchdown on the first drive for the 5th straight game. Yep. But then in the second quarter, don't show up. I mean, don't have a first down in an entire quarter. You have 3 3-and-outs. You have a one play kneel down, 1 play for -1 yard. And then the first drive of the third quarter is a 3-and-out. That's 5 straight possessions where you don't even generate a first down. And that's putting a lot of pressure on a defense, man. And it's uncomplimentary football. It's not complimentary. It's just the opposite. And man, but as poorly as all of it went, like you said, if Tyler's able to snare that pass, the Bengals win. And now you're making all these corrections. You're still like, man, hey, things didn't go well, guys. Here, we got to get this tightened up. But after a win, it's a lot easier to take than losing the football game and having to do it.
And we talk about the opposite effect of having complementary football where all the pieces come together. This was as unjointed of a performance as I've ever seen from the team. Yeah. And I just think, look, as well as they played and as well as they're coached and as much as it means to these players to play well, I'm not overly concerned. Look, I understand how games are played. Just like when we left the defense hanging and they began the battle of attrition began to mount, right? As the number of plays, your offense is going 3-and-out, you got to go back out there after a long drive. They go 3-and-out again, you got to go right back out there again. Now you're starting to wear down defensively.
Right.
And that is what happened in the Tennessee Titans game. That's why the dam burst
Yep.
and that score became what it was, right? And if Cam Taylor-Britt doesn't get that interception, we might have. I think the dam was about to break again. I will say this: the same is true for the offense. When offenses get behind and they have not been clicking, and they've seen a lot of 3 and outs. I've talked to Peyton Manning about this. As a quarterback, you could begin to press, especially if your defense is struggling to get off the field and get stops themselves. Now on 3rd down, you feel compelled to, I got to force this in there, because if we don't convert on 3rd down and then we got to punt again, I'm about to put my defense back out there.
Right.
We're already down by 10 on the scoreboard. And if I give this ball back to the offense, the opposing team, they're going to score on us again. By the time we get it back, now I'm down by 14 points or 17 points. And I think that's what you saw with Burrow. As we started to chase points, and you had to, because we're getting in the 4th quarter, we're down by 10. The defense is struggling, man, right? Now I'm trying to, I gotta keep us on the field. I gotta make a play here. And I'm telling you, that's a real thing for quarterbacks when the game, as it's unfolding the way that it was. I could see where he felt the need to try to sandwich one in there down in the end zone, and then it gets intercepted. Try to get it over the top of the defense and drop it down to Drew Sample. It sails high on him, gets intercepted. That doesn't happen to him often, but the way the game was unfolding, man, I could see how you're trying to manage a game, but now it becomes difficult to manage as the score starts to get away from you.
So they're now 0-2 in the division, 1-4 in the conference. And those don't loom large for tiebreakers, that's for sure. Now you have a division opponent again. You got to go to Baltimore. And Baltimore's intriguing. I mean, this football team, they've outscored the opponent 79-16 in the first quarter. Outscored the opponent by 63 points in the first quarter, and then by 35 in the second quarter, 35 in the third quarter. Then they've been outscored by 17 in the fourth quarter. So they've had blowouts. But if you can hang around and stay within a score of them, they have a hard time finishing sometimes. When you play Baltimore, you only get like 9 possessions in a game sometimes. If you can stay within a score and not let them pound you with those possessions, now all of a sudden, like you're behind 2 or 3 scores, and you're not going to get the ball much. So now you're going out of character, trying to do too much, and it just snowballs on you. If you can somehow stay in a game with them, and Cleveland came back from a 14-point deficit, if you can make it a 1-score game in the fourth quarter, Baltimore has had their difficulties closing those games out. They're minus 17 in the fourth quarter. Those are the close football games they've lost. The blowouts of the first 3 quarters, I mean, they've outscored people by 133 points, in the first 3 quarters. It's crazy.
And that's the key. They're playing against teams like Seattle, who they scored 30 plus. They scored 30 points in each of their last 4 games. So this is an offense that can't score.
Yep.
You talk to and what they normally do is they go on long drives. I mean, against Cleveland, they had a 20-play drive. They'll have drives where they go 18 plays because of the run game, and it allows them to do that, eat clock, which is what they do. They limit the number of possessions. Anytime you go play the Ravens, you expect to have the ball maybe 8 to 9 times. In a league where you in any other game, you could expect to have it at least 10 to sometimes 12 possessions, right?
Right on.
You're talking 8 to 9 against Baltimore because of how they play. So you got to make every possession count. There's no, and you can't turn it over because now you're giving up possessions. You got to protect the football. And to me, I've always said the best way to beat the Ravens, even with Lamar, because Lamar is a unique quarterback, you got to make them play from behind. You got to make them chase points.
Yep.
Which means now, what does that mean? They got to start throwing it more than they want. They can't nickel and dime you in their passing game, and they got to come out of some of those exotic RPOs or run plays and option stuff. No, they're going to have to start dropping back and throwing it. And that's not who he really is. I'm not saying he can't do it, He can do it when they have a lead and you least expect it, right? But when you know he's going to drop back and throw on every single down because they've got to chase points on the scoreboard, just like I was explaining with Joe Burrow or any other quarterback, when they have to make play to stay on the field on third down, man, you're playing with house money. And if you could do that against the Ravens, that's how you go in there and beat them. Get this. Since last year, 7 times they've had a 14-point lead in games and lost.
Wow.
Between now and last year. That's what happened last week against the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
Cleveland Browns never led in that game. They never led. 59 minutes and 50 seconds. And then bam, they kick a 40-yard field goal, game over, they win. They never led on the scoreboard in the entire game. So, yeah, they do struggle to finish off games, and that's why you got to hang in there. You and I both know this is a week-to-week league that we're playing in, and, man, you got to just hang in there. Teams are going to give you an opportunity, and then you got to take advantage of it.
And the most recent example is Denver getting blown out by 70 points. Now they've won 3 in a row. And, in finishing close football games, it is. The NFL is crazy. You talk about 2 different philosophies. The Bengals have the fewest rushing attempts in the National Football League. As a result, the fewest rushing yards. Baltimore, just the opposite. The most attempts, the most yards. I mean, it's yin and yang in this football game. And potentially the H-boys, Hubbard and Hendrickson, are out. So now, Cam Sample, has to step up. Ossai has to step up. Myles Murphy. And you got to believe that the Baltimore Ravens are going to attack that perimeter with Lamar Jackson in that running game big time, don't you think?
Yeah, and listen, I do believe their unique running game creates a problem, particularly when you haven't seen a whole lot of it.
Yep.
I think everything is about familiarity when it comes to playing their offense, because that's why the teams outside of our division don't do well against the Ravens. Like you saw the Detroit Lions, the Seattle Seahawks. They don't play them a whole lot. And so it's just, that's not what we're accustomed to seeing at the NFL level. Now, the college game, you get a lot of that RPO, a lot of leaving the end man on the line of scrimmage unblocked.
Yep.
And you slow play them down and read optioning. Imagine playing Lawrence Taylor like that. I often say, what if you slow played Lawrence Taylor and left him unblocked, thinking you're going to do a read option on LT? He would come hit your quarterback on every play. I get, you don't even need to tell him.
Yeah.
He's not going to even listen to the coordinator saying, just wait it out, No, I'm hitting. You mean they're going to leave me unblocked? You mean they're going to let me hit the quarterback? Oh, and you don't even need permission to do that. And that's what I say about our league. It's one thing for the offense to play a certain play that they pull up from the college ranks. It's another thing for the defense to say, we're going to play it like the colleges do. In our league, the quarterbacks aren't supposed to get hit. In fact, no team that pays their quarterback $50 million a year wants their quarterback getting smashed in the mouth.
No doubt.
So why won't you go do it?
Right.
If they're going to expose him and turn him into a running back, see, that's a defensive player talking here, Dave. I get fired up because you telling me I get to go hit your quarterback. Well, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
That's right.
I'm telling you right now, I'm not trying to maim anybody, but he getting in the whirlpool the next day. I can tell you that. So if you're thinking, if I'm Myles Murphy, if I'm Joesph Ossai, if I'm Cam Sample, let them do it. All I know is I'm hunting quarterbacks this week if you're leaving me unblocked. And I'm treating this dude. And I know he's shifty, he's quick, he's got some dart. But, dude, if he's going to slow roll you and they leave you unblocked, just go hit him. You don't have to wait. He's not a protected player. He's a runner.
Yeah.
Right? So if we know the rules and we know the game and they're going to leave us unblocked, I have never before had a defensive player that's worth his salt that you can leave unblocked and think they're not going to impact the game.
I hear that. Final question, Solly. Mike McDonald on the defensive side of things. Baltimore Ravens were playing, tough defense once again, and no surprise there. 38 sacks, leads the National Football League. I mean, he's got his simulated pressure packages and who's coming, who's not. What do you think of Mike Macdonald and his approach to defensive football?
It's a lot of zone blitz stuff, man. It's just Dick LeBeau reincarnated, right? They come from everywhere. They'll overload, and then they come from the weak side, right? Because you're moving everything to that overload side, and then you're allowing this free runner. But they have coverage behind that.
Yep.
Because typically the way pressure packages work and the way offenses want to attack, you throw behind the blitz. You throw behind the area that's been vacated because you're overloading to that side, meaning there's going to be a void behind it. But what they do, they're smart, and that's what you got to do, knowing that offenses want to attack that way. You overload, and then you drop out over there, and you come from another area, and then you steal the passing lane there. Because if the quarterback's smart, he read this over here, now he's going to go hot. You got to have someone steal the passing lane, right? Think about the play that Geno Stone made in the Week 2 game down inside the red zone against Joe Burrow. I thought that interception changed the game. I really do. We were going in, looked like we're about to score, looked like we're about to take a lead, be back in the game, and then bam, everything turned on that interception. So we're going to have to be careful with what we do. You got to see what you throw. They've got some guys who are missing and banged up as well. What we cannot allow them to do is dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball by running it and putting pressure on Joe Burrow.
And that's exactly what the Houston Texans did. So the guys up front, offensive and defensive linemen, put on the big boy pads because that's what it's going to take in Baltimore, man. No question about it. Solly, as always, you are phenomenal with your football IQ, and you express it so well, and appreciate you carving time to join us to do so, my man.
Easy to do when you love the game, right, Dave?
No question. It is. It's people call this work. You kidding me?
No. Not work at all, man. Not work at all. Paul Brown would be proud of you. That's all I must say.
You're the best, Solly.
All right, Dave. Take care. Bye-bye.
You have a great one, man.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.